right, hello everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Success Podcast. I'm here with a very special guest today. She's been a long-standing friend of mine. We used to work together at a very popular radio station. That's how we got to know each other. So I'm very happy to invite you on board, Venuri Kalinga. Venuri, nice to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's good to be here.
Yeah, what's happening?
Behind, behind a camera, behind a mic with you for like, I don't know, in like the fourth different type of situation, but good to be
I was
here.
on your podcast some time ago.
There we go, and now I'm on yours.
I
And we
mean,
were on a completely separate podcast for somebody else
years.
about what, 5
shut
years
down,
ago?
no?
Yeah, that was our first
Podcast experience.
which is why now we want to do podcasts. So that works too.
Yeah, podcasting was something I always wanted to get into, so I'm very happy to have started my own thing. I think it
For
was
sure.
something you wanted to.
For sure. I think like once you kind of realize how fun it is, and we are definitely people that love to talk. So there's no harm or no foul, I guess.
No harm, no foul. So Venuri, the reason that you're here
Yeah.
and the reason that we are able to have this conversation is because you have worked in media
Of
for
course.
some time. And one of the main reasons that I wanted to have this conversation with you is because you were heavily involved in Model United Nations,
Yeah.
right? And I personally think, although I was never a part of MUN,
Yeah.
when I look at the people that have been a part of it, and when I look at the club itself or
Yeah.
that organization itself, it's something that gives kids, people, a lot of opportunity to speak and
Yeah.
improve their communication skills.
100%.
And as someone that's in public speaking training right now,
Yeah.
it's something that I would personally encourage anyone that's in school
sure.
to get into.
Yeah.
Right? Before I get into that, talk to me a bit about your school time. Do you come from an English speaking background, and how did you learn to speak English as fluently as you speak it now?
Okay, so I think honestly, I have to say it, especially in a country like Sri Lanka, I was very privileged because from a very young age, my parents knew that they wanted me to be able to speak English. So for them, their sort of pathway towards that was to put me in an international school. So which is where I kind of picked up the language, because I come from a Sinhala speaking family. So we speak in Sinhala at home. You know, my grandparents are not fluent in English. So like school really gave me that foundation and the backing and the background, I guess, to kind of speak in English. And in terms of being able to public speak, I think it mostly comes from my mother. Because when my mother was in school, she was heavily into debating and things like that. But on the other side of it, because she, again, you know, from a Sinhala speaking background, so she did Sinhala debating, Sinhala speech competitions and things like that. And she was the type of mother that always wanted us to do everything in school. You know, like I sang, I was part of the choir till I was about in grade 8. I did like 2-3 different sports. In addition to it, I was a girl guide. But with all of those things, I was always encouraged to develop my English speaking abilities and being able to like present myself in public, which is essentially what public speaking is. So one of the ways that she really kind of pushed me to build my confidence was through MUN. So if I go to MUN, I think I first took part in an MUN conference in 2012. I would have been probably in about grade 8. And that was kind of my first step into this world that I didn't ever knew existed. And MUN is so different from public speaking, because public speaking, even debating, when you debate, from the word itself, you are kind of fighting with somebody, but with words, right? Whereas MUN, it's a whole lot different in the sense that you are trying to make your point for sure, but you are also trying to do it diplomatically. And I think there's a big bridge between those two things, because yes, of course, you have to be able to make your point even in your day-to-day life, but in a corporate sector or in different, like in situations other than a competition, are you able to put your points out in a way that it's going to be heard, where it's professional? So it kind of gives you that backing and background. So that was my first kind of entrance into MUN and public speaking in that aspect.
Before I again get into the MUN aspect
Yeah.
of things, you were also a prefect in school, right?
Yes, I was.
You were head cop?
I was head prefect.
You were head cop, okay. Now, interestingly enough, the guest I had before was also head cop of Royal.
So maybe you have a theme here.
Yeah, it's just head cops today.
Yeah.
So now I know I was a prefect at St.
Yeah.
Peter's. I know how important being able to speak well was to be a leader in school,
100%.
right? Especially to make it to the top,
Yeah.
to be head prefect
Yeah.
or deputy head prefect of a school. Your communication skills need to be exceptional.
100%.
How did you build up this communication skill? I mean, you said you took part in different
Yeah.
things. You were a sports person and all of that. But what guided you or what helped you become a good communicator, and how did that transition into your leadership position?
See, I think any good leader is somebody who listens. So as much as communicating is about speaking your points like in a clear manner, it's also about listening to what the other person says and acknowledging what they're saying and forming a thought process that matches, or rather they can understand too. Right? So I don't know, it might be because I was empathetic or I was ready to listen, but those are all parts of being able to have a good conversation, because communication essentially is conversation between two people. So if I can't listen to you and respond to you according to what you're saying, then we're never going to meet. We're never going to meet in the middle. So I think that also plays a big part, and it's doing all these different sports, different type of activities. Now, say for example, a sport is obviously, like, if you put it into like stereotypical way, a person who is involved in sports is more jock type. Whereas if you are doing something like MUN, which has a lot of research components, this person might not necessarily be a very sporty person, but it's someone who essentially gets good grades in school. So when you, even at a very young age, when you realize and understand how to deal with these different types of people, it makes it easier for you to know how to cater to their needs, which is essentially what a leader does. You listen and cater to your team. So all of these things, it builds up to you when you come to that point of wanting to be head cop or part of the prefect guild or whatever. And I think that building up also gives you a lot of value additions. And there was one particular thing that you said that I wanted to touch on, was about how prefect, like your head cop, is essentially expected to be good in speaking. And I think the reason why it's so important is essentially head prefects and your DHPs or whoever, they give openings like welcome speeches, thank you speeches. And this is essentially the first thing or the last thing you see at an event. And if, regardless of whether the event is of like a massive magnitude or not, the parents of the school are also there. And the parents get to see what type of children come out of the school. So this is essentially marketing for the school too. Right?
They're a direct representation of the school.
You are, exactly, you are inherent, especially if you are the head prefect, you are the representation of the school. So it's again marketing for the school without even having to do anything. So when you go up there and you are stuttering your words, if you don't sound confident, then the event does not flow smoothly, or it doesn't conclude with a sharp end. Whereas when you go there and you are energetic, everybody gets, especially now, say again welcome speech, you are energetic and you speak well, then everybody in the audience also is like, oh, this is going to be a good show, this is going to be a good event. And the welcome speech is essentially when people kind of settle down and start doing things or pay attention to the stage. So it inherently lays a foundation for the entire evening. So again, this is why it's so important that from a very young age kids are taught these things. And told how to stand in public, how to hold yourself with confidence. Even when it comes to a job interview, if you go and if you're super nervous, and this is funny because we had a very similar situation recently,
Yeah.
right? Whereas even me in that first conversation, I was flustered
Yeah.
and I didn't do
That's
well.
because you were caught off guard.
Still, right? Yes, for sure,
Yeah.
I was caught off guard. But then I knew where I kind of dropped the ball.
But yeah, actually now to give context on this conversation, because
sure.
the people are
Kind of left in the blank.
confused.
Yeah.
So you applied for a job recently,
Yeah.
right? And when we gave you the first call,
Yeah.
you were caught unawares because I
Yeah.
just randomly called you up
Yeah.
and said, hey, my boss is on the line.
I thought you were calling me as a friend. Hi, how are you doing? I haven't checked up on you. Are you good? Not just dropping the ball on me like that.
So that first conversation was a bit shaky,
It
for
was.
sure. But then what really impressed me
Yeah.
was when we had to have the second call,
Yeah.
you came in so prepared
Yeah.
that I would say that was probably the best interview we've had for that particular role, right? Because no one had gone into the detail of study or the detail
Yeah.
of research that you had
Yeah.
gone into. And most people, I mean, when we send them across the video materials to watch and the slide decks to go
Yeah.
through before coming for the interview, most of them don't take that diligent effort to go through every step. And even if they do sometimes,
Yeah.
they don't understand it completely.
Yeah.
And even boss, to him, the benchmark was slightly understanding the product,
Right.
right? And so he was also like, this is the first time I've had someone that completely understood what we are selling.
I mean, you have to know what you're selling, right? You have to believe what you're selling in order to sell it.
Yeah. So that was exceptional. I mean,
Thank you.
that shows that you put in a lot of diligent effort into what you're doing. So I'm not too surprised by the fact that you were the head prefect of
Yeah.
school, because I'm sure you would have put in that sort of consistent effort to what
That's
you
the
were
thing.
doing even at that time.
I think I have to. This is gonna sound crazy, but I have to give to my mother because my mother knew exactly what type of children she wanted to put out into the world. So all three of us have, like, from grade 1
Yeah.
been told, be like, even if you don't get it, it's okay, but you have to aim for the stars, which means from day 1 I'm gonna build your CV in a way that even if you don't want to do it, you're going to suck it up and do it, because this is all going to build to your personality. And building your personality starts from a very young age. And all of those things accumulated to who I am today, in terms of being a leader, in terms of how I carry myself in public, or the things that I'm interested in, all of those, like, it becomes part of your personality. So the confidence to have that be part of my personality also comes from all of these other things that have added value into my life.
What would you say is the biggest takeaway or the biggest skill that you built up by being a prefect?
Leadership. Leadership. Because people don't understand how difficult it is to be a good leader. Because I feel like, look at, like, local companies, for example. There's so many people that go to work and that absolutely hate going to work. What happens when they hate going to work? If their capacity at work is 50%, they're going to put 30% in. And if you have a shitty boss, you're going to put 20% in, like basically the bare minimum. Whereas if you enjoy working for the person you are working for, and if you enjoy the culture in that company, you're going to want to do more. And also, it's so, like, it kind of relates directly back to your mental health also, right? If you're happy, you do a better job. And you're going to spend 8 hours every single day for 5 days a week. So shouldn't this be a place of peace for your employees? And if that's the case, shouldn't that come from the top itself? And you and I have worked with an amazing boss, and somebody who made us enjoy going to work at 6 o'clock in the morning, where
I would not have done that for anyone else.
exactly what I'm saying. I have forced him to take leave and offered to cover his shifts just because, like, that man was such a good boss.
Yeah.
So that it translates to all aspects of your life, even with like your relationships with your friends. Being a good friend also means understanding the other person, and that is also a type of leadership skill. Listening, you know, it's, you can't force anybody to do what you want. You can't force anybody to do what you want them to do. You have to, there's a way and a method to the madness. A lot of people don't realize that, and they demand respect without earning respect. So that's a big skill in life. You need,
Absolutely.
and you also, like, leadership also means you treat like the security guard the same way you treat your manager or your CEO. And again, like, this was something that we really saw at the old place, because we were really good on great terms with the security guards. They still call me. They still call me and they're like, Miss, me, how are you doing, miss? And all of that, right? So
And you get so many perks by being nice to people, because
people used to hold a parking spot for me
Yes.
in front of WTC when it's
Yes.
packed.
I had that same experience.
And that uncle would be like, Miss, ada wahane neveda, or Miss, why you late? You know, It's, you just treat people with respect, and they treat you back with respect, and that essentially is a leadership skill.
Absolutely. Interesting. It's very interesting you bring up that point, because I had a conversation with a top level corporate guy at
Yeah.
Dialogue. He said the exact same thing. He
Yeah.
said he's general manager for sales there,
Right.
and he said, if you want to move up the corporate ladder, you have to treat the bottom guy just as well as you treat the top guy.
100%.
Because when it comes to getting those promotions, or when it comes to moving up in that ladder, you need to be good with everybody. Right, and
100%.
everyone's little input is what promotes you to the next
For
level.
sure, and now he is a person there. So in a similar way, my dad is somebody who literally started at the very bottom, the very bottom, because he didn't come from a family background where people could offer him jobs or anything. So he is the first person to have held his position in his industry after starting from where he is. From where he started.
Yeah.
So what does that say? I mean, it's, again, all these things that I learn about leadership are also from the environment that I grew up in at home. And how I see him talking to people. Like, I've seen him like yell at people, and then immediately, like 5 minutes later, he'll call and say, because I mean, obviously he's a little bit older, he'll be like, Pute, you know, this is why I'm telling you this. You have to understand, right? It's not that. So you can still be a good leader, call people out for their mistakes, but still be gentle about it and forget about it and help them build. Because when your team grows, when your team wins, ultimately you end up winning too.
Now, from the time that I have known you, you've been a good interpersonal communicator. You're able to carry out conversations well with people, and you said as a result, you have security guards also calling you still.
I swear to you, like last week, I think, one of them called me and I was like, Venuri miss, oya hondin neda? Hane oya hariyata matak wenawa miss apita.
No, because I remember now when I joined the company, I was a very touch and go type of person. I'll come into work, do my job, and I would leave. And I think I got to know a lot of people there after you came in and you introduced me to everyone else.
I think I also had a job role where I had to kind of interact with a lot more people, whereas
Not really. We had the same job role.
where I had to do the editing. So I had to kind of reach out to the other side in order to get access to the stories. So even that, I had to know how to play the person according to their personality.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Yeah, because now, like I said, I was someone who would just come in, read the news, and I would leave. I wouldn't talk to anyone outside of boss.
Yeah.
I'd just come in and do my job and go. But actually, I got to know almost everyone there and got to know everyone because you essentially came and made friends with everybody.
I also think, I don't know if it's the type of place we worked at, if it was that industry. I think for a guy to do that, it's a lot more easier than a woman. Where, again, I don't know if it's because of the job role or whatever, but I felt like it was easier for you to kind of do your job and get out and not have interactions, because it wouldn't affect how you performed in your job. But certain things I felt like I needed to have interpersonal relationships in order for me to be able to do my job better. And also, like, it also meant that people had my back even if I did make a mistake. Whereas with you, I think it was a lot more easier in that sense. I don't know, but this is just how I feel.
The point that I wanted to make is that you were able to make friends with a lot of people quite easily.
Yeah.
Is this people management skill something that you build up in school, or did you get it through prefectship? How important were the experiences you had in school to help you become a good interpersonal communicator?
Again, I think it again comes back to the fact that because I did so many different things in school, I was always put with lots of different type of friend groups. So I had my friends who were like athletes, and like that was their main focus. So they might not have been doing as well when it comes to like maths in school, but not that they were not smart, but that was like the focus, that was that what they were good at. So some of those conversations kind of revolved around one type of, you know, like it was in a little globe of, you know, room or whatever. Then whereas I had other friends who were not as sporty, so it was for them, it was the books or the reading or whatever it was. I managed, because I had common things with all of these people, I managed to connect with them in different ways. So it kind of taught me how to deal with people from different backgrounds. I think a school essentially does that to you anyways, because you are put in a room with people who might have a lot of money, people who might have no money. So you just have to figure it out and swim through the lot. So it builds up from there, because I don't think you can come to age 30 and look around and realize, oh, maybe you can do it, but it's going to be really difficult, because at 30 your personality has already developed.
Yeah.
How
very
are
tough
you
to break out of
it is very
what
tough.
you have already
Yeah,
built up.
and okay, so this is kind of funny, because my husband and I are polar opposites in that sense,
Okay.
because he's a lot more reserved, but
Yes.
a lot more reserved, and he loves having me because I can work the room and read the room and all of that.
Yeah.
But with his type of job, that's okay. It works for him. So it's about realizing what you're good at and kind of growing in that same space.
Talk to me a bit now about MUN. What is MUN?
Okay, so MUN basically stands for Model United Nations. So it is essentially where kids are given different countries and they simulate the UN. So it could be, so the UN has several different committees. So you are essentially simulating the committee in terms in the foreign policy of the country that was allocated. Sorry. You're essentially simulating the foreign policy of the country that was allocated to you. So what this inherently, so that's the basic example of it. So this it's a different form of debating. Whereas in debating you have the for and the against and one basic topic. Here you have a big topic, and you essentially talk to people and fight, well, not, I wouldn't say fight, but diplomatically argue with people about how different policies work for your country. I hope that did make sense, because I try to keep it as basic as possible.
So, what age do you think someone should get into MUN?
Honestly, I think for you to have a good understanding of MUN, you should at least be about 10 or 12, because you deal with some things like some heavy material sometimes. So it might not necessarily be correct for somebody who is younger, and plus the way we do things, as in terms of terminology, in terms of having to research foreign policy, so it might be a little bit difficult, because again it also comes down to the fact that you're representing a different country's foreign policy, so you might not agree with it, but you still have to do it because that's your job. Right? For example, long time ago, obviously, say when Saudi Arabia was not allowed, women were not allowed to drive in Saudi Arabia, and it might be a young girl who is representing Saudi Arabia in a topic about women's rights in Saudi Arabia. Even though she does not agree to the fact that women shouldn't be allowed to drive, her job is to
Is to advocate for it.
is to advocate for it. And that's why it's so important, because you are also kind of looking at things from somebody else's perspectives, even whether you agree to it or not. And the more you delve into it, sometimes you might understand, oh, from their perspective they might be right. Obviously not when it comes to human rights, but like there are certain things that you pick up when you represent somebody else's emotions, which is essentially, even though it's governing policy, you're representing somebody else.
All right, everyone, just a quick reminder here that if you are someone that is struggling to speak in front of an audience, if you are someone that gets nervous when you see a large group of people, if you don't have the right vocabulary when you have to speak in English, and if you go every time you see a crowd, make sure to sign up to our public speaking classes. We have both online and physical classes. You can choose which one you want to join. But one thing I can guarantee is that if you sign up to our classes, you will be the most confident speaker that you have ever been. You will never say again. You'll speak as confidently as you possibly can, and you will be the best public speaker that you have the potential in yourself to be. So give me a call on the number below, and I will help you become a great public speaker. What was an interesting case that you remember that you've argued for that kind of stuck with you as you moved in MUN?
Oh my God, I think it definitely would have had a lot to do with women's rights. Women's rights, children's rights. I think there was one time where I was part of the Russian delegation, I think, if I'm not mistaken. So that was very controversial. But I mean, with it being what it is, I still really enjoyed being controversial. Because it also gives you a reprieve of not having to kind of always stick to the box that you've been put into. Right? You might disagree, but this is what the country is doing, so you have to fight for your country, basically.
Do you think that joining MUN builds up your communication skills?
For sure, because unlike in debating, where it is like kind of super aggressive and in your face, in a MUN conference or in a MUN committee, when say you ask me a question, I can't even look at you when I answer.
What does that mean?
Okay, so now I will have to get a little bit into like the schematics of how things run. So these changes from conference to conference, from year to year, but so we have this thing where we essentially, it's like a position paper where you tell everybody your stance on a particular topic. Say it's child rights. So you will say you're India, I am UK, you will tell me your position on child rights in India, I will tell you of my policies in UK or wherever the hell it is, and we will kind of the committee is made aware of where you stand, right? So after you make your statement as your country, people can ask you questions regarding certain policies that you all have, some controversial policies you all have. So it's kind of like an attack in the form of questions. So in order to not make it an attack between two people, you're not supposed to look at the person who asked you the question. Either you're supposed to look at the entire committee room, or you're supposed to ask your like chairs, which is like a judging panel, and that's how you're supposed to answer. So sometimes even when things get like super aggressive, you have to keep your calm and make your points heard. Because sometimes, like in a MUN committee, because how it works in the MUN, you form these blocks with people who support for your point of view versus people who don't. So even if you are supporting something nice, if you are super aggressive in how you do it, the countries with policies that could go either way tend to go towards the more approaching person. So it's essentially how you play your surrounding.
So again, a lot of people reading skills is very important.
For sure.
Right.
For sure.
Do you think that's something that you have built up through MUN, and do you think that people coming in eventually build up these skills as a result of taking part?
100%. 100%. Because I think it's so important, especially for young children, to know how to be empathetic, but also communicate things in very clear diplomatic ways. Because if you're at a workplace and somebody is irritating you, you can't just go shout at them, right? You have to make sure they understand what you're trying to say, but still in a diplomatic manner rather.
Yeah.
Right? So you can't be shouting in your workplaces. So these are all things that build you up to that position. That's why a lot of universities, especially universities out of Sri Lanka, hold such high regard for kids who have done MUN. Because MUN is one of those clubs that kind of really give you a big amount of points when you're applying for universities abroad.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. So
Because
how-
it's a global thing, right?
Right.
It's a global club.
So it's like Interact, Rotaract,
Exactly.
something
Exactly.
similar to
Yeah.
that. How big is the network? I mean, we know, okay, when you say Rotaract, you know that it's all over the world, it's huge, people are there
Yeah.
connected. How big is the MUN network?
In Sri Lanka, I would think it's massive.
Really? Even now?
Oh, it's insane. Because when I started MUN in 2012, there were only 2 major conferences that happened in the country.
Okay.
Right now, there's only still 2 major conferences, but there are multiple mini conferences that happen at least 2 a month.
2 a month?
2 a month. I think your school also had their own MUN conference, or I don't know if it was Joe's, but they also do their own mini conferences with like 3-4 schools. So it's a big network.
Is there any platform after you complete the school level Model United Nations that you can move into? Does this open up other avenues? Now, for example, Interact leads into Rotaract. Similarly, is there something?
Not really, because this is more school based, but there are certain uni clubs.
Okay.
But it's not as well developed in Sri Lanka. But most people that pass through these doors, so we have somebody who is, I mean, at least some of these people, we have somebody who is at the Attorney General's department. He was the first ever Secretary General in the country. We have somebody who works for the UN resident coordinator. We had somebody that worked with reconciliation right after the war. We have lots and lots and lots of lawyers.
Yeah.
But no, there were people that got scholarships to kind of go overseas.
Because of
Yeah,
MUN.
yeah. We have so many. You have like the Brighton scholarship and stuff like that. So we have so many people who did MUN, Chevening scholars who used to do MUN. So it really kind of opens up that path for you. Lots of people in international relations, lot of people that work for think tanks and things like that. So it's basically like the sport of all the nerds.
So, sport of all the nerds. So, for someone that struggles to speak in front of an audience,
Yeah.
would you recommend this as a platform that would help them overcome their fear of speaking, or would this crush them even further because now you're competing with people that are already really good?
I think that's the most beautiful part of MUN. When you start out, obviously, and you're in this big room with about 90-100 people, and people are kind of like going at each other, it is scary. But everybody in that committee, when they see somebody new, somebody young, somebody who's struggling to speak, speaks up. Now I told you about this whole like asking question thing. Even if they say okay, you can say no to being asked a question, and even if you say no, nobody's like, everybody is very supportive, everybody around you is super supportive, they'll tell you did a good job. And even if you say okay to asking a question, it's probably going to come from one of the most aggressive people in the committee room, but they are going to give you such a easy question. But also you have to understand that they are also playing with their audience. The reason they are doing is they are showing that they are nice to people who are not as good in the scene. But still, like, they give you so much of leeway and they're so nice to you. Even if you make a mistake, even if your English is wrong, nobody is gonna bring it and bring you down. And what happens is when you see all these people from other schools doing really good and having this like intense debate, you kind of want to join. Like everybody wants to be a leader, right? And when you see these people like talking so well, you also want to be one of the leaders, somebody that looks up to, like somebody that the entire room looks up to. So it's you're not going to get good at MUN in one conference. It's a long term process. So it's something that we develop. So I started in 2012 and I kind of hung my shoes in debating, I think in 2016-17, but it like I continue to get better with every conference that I went to. Because and MUN is not a skill where it's just about talking. There's a lot of research involved. So this helps you in the long run when you write your term papers in uni. You know, how you search up conflict, how you sometimes look up dirt on your opponent, you know. So it's a 360 type of skill.
And obviously it would help you in your job.
100%.
Because you would have to do a lot of research, you would have to study about your role.
So I think this also kind of comes back to,
of course, to the interview.
To the interview, right?
Because that level of, because you are already used to putting in that level of focus and preparation into something that you were then able to bring into your job.
Because again, that is also what you're doing, right? Because you're representing somebody else, you really need to believe what you're representing in order to deliver it with conviction.
Absolutely.
So it all comes down to a science, and it all makes sense at the end of the day. But sometimes I think, especially for very young kids in the beginning, it's not going to. It's going to be difficult, it's going to be tough. I know for a fact that more than me, I think my brother, who also did MUN and all of that, there have been a lot of times where he absolutely said, I am done, I don't want to do this anymore, I quit. And my mom was like, no, just one more, hold on. And it turned out he became a better debater than I ever did. So, you know, but it is what it is.
Does it help you build up your organizational skills? Does it help you build up your ability to manage events? Because you all put up these big conferences.
Okay. Yes and no. In the sense when you, so I will tell you a little bit about how this MUN thing works in Sri Lanka. So Sri Lanka has two big conferences, like I told you, which is Sri Lanka Model United Nations, which is my home ground, if you will, you know, if I can call it that. And then there's something called the COMON, which is the Colombo Operated Model United Nations Club. So SLMUN is an island-wide thing, whereas COMON, yes, of course, it's open island-wide, but it mostly focuses on international schools and schools in Colombo. Whereas for SLMUN, we have kids coming down from like Jaffna.
Oh, shit.
So like full all island coverage. And sometimes we also have kids coming from like India. So it opens,
Wow.
So
Indian exchange students come in here?
Yes.
Wow, okay.
Yes. Not just India, I think we've had delegates from Korea, we've had from like different countries. So essentially, so in terms of like a school level, you have how a normal club in school would work. Like whatever, like your hierarchies, you'll have the president, whatever. So yes, there is a level of organization in that. And now with all these schools starting to do these mini conferences, like I told you, there is inherently a part of doing an event, organizing a conference. But that also happens on a much smaller scale, because it's like 3, 4, 5 schools. Whereas when it comes to Sri Lanka Model United Nations, it's a massive thing. It's again, we cater about 1,000 kids a year for 2 days at BMICH. It used to be 3 before, but it's very difficult to coordinate with kids coming from so far, so we had to cut it down to 2. So we have 2 days from morning till evening, 2 consecutive days, and we form an executive committee for this about a year before. So this year, when the last conference is done, we already set the dates and booked BMICH for next year. And then, so if we finish in August, by September, October, we have the executive committee decided. And this executive committee runs on a scale where you have kids from different schools. So you're dealing with like so many different personalities, because you might have a kid who has come in to be part of the logistics team that maybe is not the greatest at doing MUN, but then you have somebody from like a massive international school who's been known in this MUN scene as being one of the debaters in the country. So, and imagine you put all of them into a room, say 17, 18, 19-year-olds, and they have to figure out their relationships. And at the end of the year, these kids walk away with like relationships that they've built for life. And you know, I have these people in my life, right? I'm still very close with them. I still work with some of them. So it's different levels of hierarchy. I think I might have deviated from the question a little bit.
No. So I think you were very much on point in terms of how you build up a good
Yeah.
team, you build up good relationships, which then helps you organize a big event,
Massive
coordinate
event.
a big event.
Because in addition to this one event, we have so many small things leading up to it. So they will they will do workshops all island. So they will go out and pick schools that have not done MUN. This is all like 17, 18, 19-year-olds doing, right?
Yeah.
And they'll do a workshop. Then they will have these things called practice debates. They have to find their own sponsors. They have to come up with their own budget. They have to do their own marketing, their own PR, social media.
I mean, it's pretty much like a job.
Pretty much like a job.
Yeah.
You don't really have a lot of time to do anything else. And then on top of that, they have to train the people who are in the judging panel. Because how can you judge kids if they're good or not if you yourself is not good? Then they have to select the committees that will be simulated, the information sheets, even the marking systems are done by them. So it's a like it makes you grow up in a way that you wouldn't think, because it's different from doing it for a school, right? Because you always have schools backing, and it's mostly like you're not going to do 1,000-person event at school unless maybe it's like an interact rotact thing, but that is also a lot of schools or a lot of teams coming together. Here what our teams are about 40-50 people.
And you all put together this massive event.
Every single year without fail for the past, this is going to be our 19th.
Damn.
Every single year.
Are you still involved in any way?
Yes, I am now. I work as a consultant for the organization, but I came back I think last year.
Okay.
But yeah, so which is why I have a lot more intimate knowledge about how things happen. So essentially, we provide guidance for the kids and tell them where they're going wrong and not. So I do it with a partner. Funnily enough, he's also from Royal Institute, but he was also head prefect there.
Okay.
And he also did MUN. So you know, we have that understanding. So yeah.
One last question about MUN.
Yeah.
Before we move into other
Yeah.
things. What now? A lot of the audience that's watching our content are people that are either struggling to speak English or they can speak English but they struggle to speak in front of an audience.
Yeah.
How would you encourage them, or what advice would you give for them with regards to joining MUN?
Honestly, okay. So first of all, I think most schools in Colombo right now have clubs. So talk to whoever is in charge of the club, see how you can get in, and just maybe, I think with MUN, a lot of kids, because of how difficult it seems in the beginning, want to give up. And like researching and things like that is not anybody likes to really do, you know. So it's a thing where the longer you hold on, the better you get, the more understanding you have, because it's about understanding your product, right? And so if you look at my personal journey through MUN, I didn't like it in the beginning, and then I realized, oh, if I put a little bit of effort into it, I can be good at it. And then it continued to be, in terms of speaking, I continued there. And then, so even when it comes to, like, for example, the executive committee, there are levels at it. So you will have like your vice chairs, then you'll have your presidents, and then you'll have this thing called the secretariat, where essentially like how the actual UN runs, you will have an under secretary general for PR, for finance, and then finally you have the secretary general. So your level of understanding of the entire game changes with every level you go up. So when I was very privileged and lucky to have ended up being a secretary general, but that journey there wasn't easy, right? Because now when I became secretary general, there had been, I think I was the 11th, I can't really remember, but out of the 11 secretary generals, I was the only second female. I was the only second female, and then so my like it is also something that kind of develops with time, because the world around you is constantly changing, so the global politics around it is constantly changing. So with time everything differs. So when I was secretary general, and the things that I had to communicate down to the ground as to this, like, you know, to a delegate who is just starting MUN versus okay, so my brother also was privileged enough in a few years to we were the only, right now at least, we're the only two
brother sister
duo secretary generals in the country.
Nice.
So when he got there, his issues were completely different to mine. So it's a constantly evolving thing, which means kids also have to put up with that evolution. So whether you like it or not, you're constantly going to be pushed into uncomfortable spaces where you have to grow.
So it's definitely something that anyone that's in school should at least give a shot for at least a year of their life.
A year or two, I think if you do it for 2 years, you will definitely know if this is something for you or not.
Fantastic. Venuri, there's a lot more to talk about. Let's go into a quick break and let's get back.
Sure.
Alright guys, so that's a wrap for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like our page, share this video with a friend, and let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. And most importantly, till our next video, keep practicing.